Hi, I'm Alessandro Lodesani. I am a physicist and an engineer, one of the co-founders of the Quantum Biology Institute and Quantum Biology DAO, and today I'm answering questions about quantum biology. Is quantum biology real? Yes. What is quantum biology? Well, quantum biology is the field of science that studies how non-trivial quantum effects can impact life. Why did scientists assume for so long that biology couldn't be quantum? Well, there's some very good reasons for that. And being a physicist myself, I used to work in millikelvin conditions, so super cold, ultra high vacuum. So basically trying to isolate the system that you study as much as possible to enhance the coherence time or the quantumness times just by having as little noise as possible. And so in a system like a biological system at room temperature with a bunch of messy stuff going on all the time, it's easy to think that nothing that is super short-lived and needs to be studied at super cold temperatures just to not have noise, that can exist, right? But we do think that biology has evolved to actually use these quantum effects for function. Unlike us, which just know about quantum mechanics for like 100 years, biology has evolved for billions of years, and evolution must have found a way to use these quantum processes in a noisy, messy environments like human cells. And actually, one of the possible implications of quantum biology is that if we can learn how biology has evolved to use quantum effects, we can actually use the same principles and translate them to quantum technologies like quantum computing. And that's probably how we're gonna overcome the technical difficulties around quantum computing. ASMR. How is quantum biology relevant to health? It is very relevant to health, and we do expect that most of the applications that are going to come out of quantum biology, especially when it comes to the study of how magnetic fields interact with biology, is going to be in the health space. Something related to longevity, therapeutics, because we do know by many different experiments, some very good quality, that we can use magnetic fields to actuate on biology. What we don't really understand quite yet is the mechanism through which magnetic fields interact with life. And so by understanding this mechanism, which we think it's quantum, we gain predictive power on how to actuate on biology using tiny magnetic fields. Let's see. What would you say to a skeptic that says that quantum bio is bullshit? Well, I would say I felt the same initially. And then I started doing some experiments, and we saw that the effects of tiny magnetic fields are real, reproducible in many different organisms across many different types of experiments. And so I personally was convinced by doing experiments myself, but there's a lot of literature that talks about magnetic field effects in biology, which is what we focus on, but other quantum biology effects are out there. And I would say just do your own research and you'll see that there's some solid science behind this. When people hear quantum, what do they usually misunderstand? I think there's some sort of mysticism around quantum that, oh, people cannot understand quantum, so anything that we don't understand, then it must be quantum and all of that, which doesn't make too much sense. I think we do have a very good understanding of quantum phenomena, and the only thing is that the kind of logic that quantum processes follow is really out of what we can imagine, but that doesn't mean that we cannot model it and understand it. How old is quantum biology? Good question. So it's gonna be almost as old as quantum mechanics, because the first person to propose that quantum effects might play a role in biology was Erwin Schrödinger, the guy of the cat. So yeah, with the book, What is Life? How does classical biology compare to quantum biology? That's a good question, and I think they're complementary in the sense that quantum biology is just an extension of classical biology, in the sense that there are some biological effects that we cannot really explain in any other way than just involving some non-trivial quantum processes. And so we're basically diving deeper using a more physicsy approach on exploring biology and just trying to really understand the basic mechanisms of how things like weak magnetic fields can interact and have a macroscopic impact on biology. What do weak magnetic fields have to do with quantum biology? Great question. I'm glad you asked. Weak magnetic fields have really tiny energy associated with them, and in some organisms, the only way to explain how they can have an impact on physiology and biological processes is by quantum sensing. So using non-trivial quantum effects like spin superpositions to detect magnetic fields and downstream impact chemical reactions and biological processes. What are the most famous examples of quantum biology? Okay, so the most famous example is probably birds, European robins to be explicit, that seem to migrate using the magnetic field of the Earth through a process that involves a protein in their eyes that is called cryptochrome. And so what we think is that there's a quantum process involved in the detection of the magnetic field of the Earth that birds can use to help them navigate. Other things that are very well known are that enzymes use quantum mechanical processes to function properly, and also things like photosynthesis are processes that are so efficient that we might need to use quantum mechanical processes to explain how efficient they are. What are the practical applications of quantum biology? I think it's gonna vary a lot based on the flavors of quantum biology that we consider. But for the one that we study at the Quantum Biology Institute, which has to do with how tiny magnetic fields interact with biology, I think most of the applications are going to be in the health space, so something around therapeutics and longevity, but also things like biomanufacturing are going to be sort of low-hanging fruits because the times to actual application are much lower. It's gonna be much faster just because you don't have to go through a clinical trial. It's gonna be also very interesting for space travel, because if you go to Mars, you don't have the Earth's magnetic field anymore. And we have demonstrated that Earth's magnetic field itself can have huge implications on biological systems. Other things that might be impacted by quantum biology are drug discovery, quantum technologies themselves. If we learn how nature has evolved to use quantum processes at room temperature in messy environments, we will probably be able to develop much better quantum sensors, quantum computing, and all of that. Thank you. See you next time.